A 5-minute urological procedure destroys a man's life. Would you like to learn what this is about? Come join me as I share with you this great information. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury trial attorney practicing law here in the state of New York. Today I'm shooting video outdoors in a beautiful park not far from my home. You'll hear the birds singing, some noise outdoors, but I wanted to share this really remarkable story with you. A gentleman was having difficulty urinating, and he goes to a urologist who tells him, we can do a procedure to fix this. We're going to go in, I'm going to take a knife and literally scrape out the scar tissue that's building up in the urethra, which is the tube that leads the urine out through the penis. The patient says, okay. He has it done, but there's a problem. Within a few weeks, the patient comes back with the same exact problem. The doctor examines him, says, you're right, the scar tissue has come back, and now we're not going to do the same procedure. The doctor tells him, listen, I'm going to put in a mesh stent, which is a metal stent inside your urethra, which will spring open and hold the urethra open. This way you won't have the scar tissue that closes it up and create the difficulty urinating. So the patient says, fine. And literally, this is a few-minute procedure. Over the next few weeks, this patient winds up having significant pain in his penis. And he tells the doctor, listen, I can no longer control my urine. It just flows right out. The doctor says, that's good. You see, the mesh is working. He said, but every time I have an erection, I have massive pain. The doctor says, don't worry, just take some pain medication. It'll be fine. Well, it wasn't fine, because what happened was that this particular mesh caused so much pain to the patient that at one point he considered killing himself. That's how bad the pain was. Now, I should tell you, he was 37 years old, has 3 young children and a beautiful wife, and every single time he had to go to the bathroom or he woke up in the morning, he was in excruciating pain. It was awful. So he goes back to the doctor, and the doctor says, listen, what I think we'll do is I'm going to try and manipulate this mesh device. Maybe it's not in the right place. I'm going to move it around and see how that works. What the doctor didn't tell the patient was that this particular mesh device is not supposed to be moved. It's not supposed to be manipulated. Once it's inside the urethra, it's designed to stay there. And the skin inside the urethra literally grows over that mesh in order for it to stay in place. They call that epithelialization. It's a fancy word that just means the skin overgrows it. So now the patient goes in for the surgery, the doctor goes in and tries to manipulate this mesh, and what happens? Because the skin has already overgrown it, the mesh doesn't move. So the doctor tries, and he's pulling and tugging. Next thing you know, the mesh falls apart. The doctor has to pull out strand by strand in order to get this out, and what happens in this process is he destroys the entire inside of the man's urethra. But he says, you know what, let me put in another mesh a little further down into closer to the base of the penis, and that's what he does. And then he says, you know what, I'm going to put in a second mesh right in front of that one, so now you have one back to back. That should help. Well, what happened was that now the patient goes home, and over the next course of days and weeks, this condition got worse and worse. The patient goes to another urologist, and the doctor examines him and says, oh my God, it looks like a bomb has gone off inside your urethra. What happened here? It turns out that this mesh, number one, never should have been inserted into a gentleman this young. Why? Because it was specifically designed for elderly patients, patients who no longer had the ability to maintain an erection. Now, this patient had to go to a specialist known as a urological reconstructive surgeon, and he had to reconstruct the entire urethra. Literally, he had to cut open the underside of the penis from the top all the way down to the bottom and reconstruct it. And that took 18 months to fix. But now here's the challenge. When you're in the middle of trying to reconstruct something, you can't allow the urine to flow out. Why? Because it will destroy what you've just fixed. The doctor had to create something called a urinary diversion, which allows the urine to come out someplace other than where it's normally supposed to come out. And where did he do that? He made a hole between the anus and the scrotum. And so now every time he had to urinate, he had to sit down like a woman. And this went on for 18 months. And this gentleman went through a life-changing experience and had to go through massive reconstructive urological surgery. Why? Because the original urological surgeon did the wrong thing. Why do I share this information with you? I share it with you just to give you an insight and an understanding into what goes on in the types of cases that I handle on an everyday basis. You know, I realize that you're probably watching this because you have questions or concerns about your own surgery. Well, what I recommend you do if you do have legal questions is pick up the phone and call me. I can answer your legal questions. This is something I do every single day, and I welcome your call. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, Gerry, at oginski-law.com. Well, that's it for today's quick video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a wonderful day.